Hello everyone, Max here with Fiction Rant to bring you part 5 of my Halo vs. Mass Effect matchup series. This section will cover the numerical element of the matchup. Starting with the ground forces, this one's a bit lopsided because only one side really fields armies, at least ones that we actually get to see, though both have quite capable soldiers. In Halo specifically, both the UNSC and Covenant utilize sizable ground forces supplemented with a variety of vehicles and ground support fighters. These ground forces are really only relevant around sensitive installations that the Covenant isn't interested in destroying, such as basically any Forerunner installation. For everything else, the Covenant tends to prefer a scorched earth approach to ground engagements, quite literally. That said, the Covenant is also quite capable and willing to utilize boarding party squads consisting of mostly elites and grunts to soften up particularly stubborn targets. Granted, sometimes this makes very little sense, such as in Halo 1, when the time spent to board the Pillar of Autumn was spent instead of just having the ships in the area blow it up. Maybe they were just too far away at the time in order to stop the ship before it could crash into the first Halo ring. Maybe somebody out there has some meta-knowledge, I don't know. So if you could comment what happened there, I'd appreciate it. But yeah, they decided to board the ship instead of just blowing it up. It was a little weird. Citadel forces from Mass Effect are significantly more squad-based. In the games, you're playing as what basically amounts to a Black Ops agent, Spectre in this case, who acts as a fairly autonomous surgical strike against threats to the Citadel and its interests, so this involves a lot of dealing with problems on foot against squads of enemy forces, be they gang members or security forces on board an enemy vessel. The point being, the squads of soldiers in Mass Effect are quite effective, but they don't really field armies per se. The most we really get to see in terms of ground forces were collections of Geth with their armored vehicles and structures, but even then we don't see giant armies of soldiers, more like scattered squads consisting of maybe a couple dozen soldiers of various types. All that to say, the Halo and Mass Effect factions all absolutely utilize squad tactics for the most part, but in terms of a full army conflict, really only the Covenant and UNSC maintain standing armies for that kind of thing. Moving on to space conflict, I'm setting this conflict as of the beginning of Mass Effect 3, before the Reapers started thrashing the Citadel fleet, and at the end of the Covenant-UNSC war, when the elites and humans began working together and started to rebuild. So really I'll be using approximately Halo Infinite as my time frame. I'll also note that the actual concrete figures on available ships for all factions involved are not really available, so I'll be referencing the sizes of the largest fleets we get to see instead. For Halo, the largest UNSC fleet we get to see was the combination of the 2nd, 5th, 7th, and 17th fleets, along with 300 orbital defense platforms at the Battle for Earth at the beginning of Halo 2. Each of those fleets consisted of approximately 75 ships for a total of about 300 ships, plus the 300 orbital defense platforms. Meanwhile, the largest Covenant fleet we get to see was at the Battle of Reach, where around 750 warships, including one supercarrier, defeated the UNSC and glassed the planet. That's the scorched earth approach I was talking about earlier. They actually laser the entire surface of the planet and turn it into glass. The 750 ship total number here is a bit misleading though, since the whole Covenant with all these ships behind it did not end up becoming friendly with the UNSC. Just the elites, or at least a number of them, the ones that joined the Sangheili Alliance, and those who would stay friendly with them, while the brutes and loyalists to the Prophets remain hostile. Ultimately, I have absolutely no idea how many of the ships that leaves, so we'll get into some wild speculation. What I do have is that in Halo 3, when the Sangheili Alliance worked with the UNSC to fight the Prophet of Truth's fleet at the Ark, it was stated that the Sangheili were outnumbered 3-1. So I'll do a little math. At Reach, there were at least 4 fleets involved, so I'll quarter that to represent Truth's fleet, leaving 187 ships. I'll then divide that by 3 to get the approximate number of ships in the friendly elite fleet, giving us 62 ships. So, for the purposes of this matchup, the Covenant will contribute only 62 ships. This may seem a bit unfair overall, but remember that the Sangheili Alliance were rebelling against the Covenant, so the vast majority of the ships that would still be loyalist and not helping the UNSC. Moving on to Mass Effect, the largest engagement we get to see is the battle between the combined Citadel fleet and a fleet of Reapers at the end of Mass Effect 3. Unfortunately, the games themselves don't tell us how many ships were involved, so I get to, again, resort to wild speculation. For the Alliance Navy, or Humanity's Navy, I was able to dig up that during the First Contact War, which took place before the games, the Navy consisted of at least 2 fleets, totaling 200 ships, so I will approximate that at the time there were about 100 ships per fleet. As of Mass Effect 3, the Alliance Navy consists of thousands of ships, how many thousands I don't know, and they don't say, divided among 8 fleets, and is among one of the larger navies of any Citadel faction, so I'll assume that each fleet consisted of more like 250 to 300 ships at that point. Unfortunately, that doesn't help us very much in terms of how many ships were involved in combined fleet operations, like when we see when the Citadel forces were fighting the Reapers to try to retake the Citadel. But if we're accounting for sheer numbers of ships with the Alliance contributing the most ships, let's say 2 fleets worth, since the battle happened in Earth orbit, so they'd be pretty concerned about winning that fight. Let's say that the Turians contributed about half that many ships. A lot of Turians still don't like humanity because of the First Contact War, so they'd be less committed. Also, it's not their home planet. The Asari contributed one of their dreadnoughts, and the Solarians were specifically noted as contributing a whole 8 ships. This gives us a grand total of about 900 some odd ships participating in that battle, all of which were destroyed by 150 Reapers, with the exception of 1 Solarian ship which managed to get away. In any case, I'll assume that the most they could muster at any really reasonable time is about 900 ships. I think that's fairly reasonable for a serious effort from a combined Citadel fleet. This means that the Citadel forces would likely outnumber Halo forces in a concerted fleet battle situation, but only by 100 ships or so. This isn't like we're tripling or quadrupling the numbers of Halo forces. It's lopsided, but not by that much. But what do you all think? Have you managed to find some better figures than me that help to clarify the numerical element of this matchup a little more? I would love to know that, so if you could let me know in the comments. Seriously, on this matchup in particular, the comments have been super duper helpful. There's a lot of information out there available. A lot of it's in books that I just haven't actually read. I'm depending on codex entries for a lot of this kind of stuff, so any extra insight that you guys have is super helpful. But until next time, live long and prosper, and may the Force be with you.